Commutation readings are made possible thanks to viewers like you. Please visit us at commutationconstruct.locals.com. Memberships are free to start with coupon code CCFREE. Hello everyone, and welcome to our read-along segments here on Commutation Construct. I don't really have a great name thought up for these yet. Maybe Constructing History, you can call it, at least in this case, as we will be looking at the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers for some time now, considering how many there are. So today we will be reading through Federalist number 1, and yeah, let's just jump into it. So here we have on Federalist number 1, to the people of the state of New York. After an unequivocated experience of the inefficiency of the subsisting federal government, you are called upon to deliberate on a new constitution for the United States of America. And this is because, as some of you may know, the U.S. Constitution did have to be rewritten pretty early on. After, 10, 15 years, it needed to be redone. And this is also these arguments between Federalists and Anti-Federalists. These are what got us our Bill of Rights, among many other aspects that basically established America as it is known today. So, the subject speaks its own importance, comprehending in its consequences nothing less than the existence of the Union, the safety and welfare of the parts of which it is composed, and the fate of an empire, in many respects, the most interesting in the world. Well, they've got it there, yeah. This is the debate that it created the most interesting empire in the world. That's very true. We are the only empire that's ever been designed on freedom. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country by their conduct and example to decide the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, and whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we are arrived may with propriety be regarded as the... Is that area? Era, I guess. I'm not good with the AEs from older English. But at which we may with propriety be regarded as the era in which that decision is to be made, and a wrong election of the part we shall act may, in this view, deserve to be considered as a general misfortune of mankind. So, it seems that this is basically informing the people that they're going back into the Constitution. They're going to go and rewrite it, remake it, and they are now proposing to the people, hey, can people in general make up their own mind and their own will to how they want to be governed? And that is really key to America. It's like, this is saying we are set out to prove that people can self-govern, and people have their free will, and people can exercise that free will to successfully take care of themselves and choose their leaders, yada yada. It's a very important topic, and so this is what's introducing that. All right, let's get into it more. This idea will be added to the inducements. I like that word. This idea will be added to the inducements of philanthropy and those of patriotism to heighten the solicitude. Gotta love the way they wrote back then. Actually, I do. So, patriotism to heighten the solicitude which all considerate and good men must feel for the event. Happy will it be if our choice should be directed by a judicious estimate of our true interests, unperplexed and unbiased by considerations not connected with the public good. But this is a thing more ardently to be wished than seriously to be expected. The plan offered to our deliberations affects too many particular interests, innovates upon too many local institutions, not to be involved in its discussions a variety of objects foreign to its merits and of views, passions, and prejudices little favorable to the discovery of truth. So what we have here is basically people have their biases. We are setting out to create a dream, an ideal society, something that constitutes dreams, something people just throughout history have never thought realistic. But we're still trying to do everything we can to make it happen, and that's a good part of the founders. I'm glad to see that they would really acknowledge the fact that, hey, what they're doing is a crazy dream. Among the most formidable of the obstacles which the new Constitution will have to encounter may readily be distinguished the obvious interest of a certain class of men in every state to resist all changes which may hazard a gotta love these, right? Diminution of the power, emolument, and consequences of the offices they hold under the state establishments, and the perverted ambition of another class of men, who will either hope to aggrandize themselves by the confusion of their country, or will flatter themselves with fairer prospects of elevation from the subdivision of the empire into several partial confederacies than from its union under one government. So this is basically talking about how states are going to have things that would suit them more than being unionized. There are things that will come with being unionized that will act against the direct interest of states at times. I'm sorry, I keep biting my tongue. But yeah, states do have this issue where what is good for the state is not necessarily good for the country. You could see this even today in things like states trying to get special tax benefits, or all of the fluff that gets added to many modern bills that go through Congress. Like, why did Obamacare have taxes on housing and stuff like that? Hey, like things unrelated to the base, just pocket stuffers. And this is basically referencing that, like, hey, don't do that. Like, we're gonna want to try to we're gonna join the union, and that's gonna have its issues. So be ready for any consequences of it, and not break off. Well, considering we did have a broken off Confederacy, and our bills currently are full of all of those stuffers in there. That's just my word for it. I don't know how successful this one is, but it's good to see that our founders really did try to think of everything. They did try to put all this stuff in here. It is not, however, my design to dwell upon observations of this nature. I am well aware that it would be disingenuous to resolve indiscriminately the opposition of any set of men, merely because their situation might subject them to suspicion, into interested or ambitious views. Yeah, so people are gonna do it. People are going to be in positions where they're going to want to twist things to their favor, for sure. Candor will oblige us to admit that even such men may be actuated by upright intentions, and it cannot be doubted that much of the opposition which has made its appearance and may hereafter make its appearance will spring from sources blameless at least, if not respectable, the honest errors of minds led astray by preconceived jealousies and fears. Or hereafter make its appearance will spring from sources blameless, at least if not respectable, the honest errors of minds led astray by preconceived jealousies and fears. Yeah, so basically, a lot of opposition to creating the federal system of the and creating the centralized union. There'll be lots of opposition to it because of, again, jealousies of inequalities and possible ruling outcomes. Some states being more favored than others, and fears of just things that could go wrong or against what those states want. All that stuff. So numerous indeed and so powerful are the causes which serve to give a false bias to the judgment, that we, upon many occasions, see wise and good men on the wrong as well as on the right side of questions of the first magnitude to society. So numerous indeed and so powerful are the causes which serve to give us a false bias to the judgment. Yeah. So, again, many things cause us to be biased. This circumstance, if duly attended to, would furnish a lesson of moderation to those who are ever so much persuaded of their being in the right in any controversy. And that reminds me of today's politics. Everyone's very convinced that they're on the right side of history. And a further reason for caution in this respect might it be drawn from the reflection that we are not always sure that those who advocate the truth are influenced by purer principles than their antagonists. Ambition, avarice, personal animosity, party opposition, and many other motives, not more laudable than these, are apt to operate as well upon those who support as upon those who oppose the right side of a question. He keeps using this phrase, the right side of a question, and I'm kind of, I'm very curious what that is to infer. I'm curious if that's like if that's being used similarly to how the right side of history is used today, because that's kind of how I'm interpreting it as I'm going through this. That's what it feels like. But I will be curious for you how you guys read this in the comments below. Again, not to chill in the middle of a paragraph, but subscribe, like, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want to do, and comment. And yeah, so let's continue with this. Were there not even these inducements to moderation, nothing could be more ill-judged than the intolerant spirit which has at all times characterized political parties. For in policies, as in religion, it is equally absurd to aim at making proselytes by fire and sword. Heresies in either can rarely be cured by persecution. Proselytes, well, that's a word. So let's go back through this because I'm trying to also I've read some anti-federalist papers. I haven't read this at all. So let's go back through this and see what and try to break this down again to try to get it in a bit more modern English, at least, so I'll give it a little bit of live analysis. So, ambition, avarice, personal animosity, party opposition, and many other motives not more laudable than these are apt to operate as well upon those who support as upon those who oppose the right side of a question. So, whether you're opposing or supporting something in a way that is that in a way that will be end up being seen as correct, or that is objectively correct. This seems to be assuming that there is an objective correct side, an objective correct position. So, but regardless of that, whichever side you're on, you're going to have things biasing you and drawing you to make your decisions for improprietous means. You're going to be not necessarily making these calls in good faith. You may be biased, essentially. Were there not even those inducements to moderation, nothing could be more ill-judged than the intolerant spirit which has at all times characterized political parties. People, political parties. Need we say more? All right. For in politics, as in religion, it is equally absurd to take aim at making proselytes by fire and sword. So you can't. Heresies in either can really be cured by persecution. So yeah, you're gonna have situations where people just align with their parties, and the parties will try to force people to stay in line. That's why it's saying fire and sword, persecution for committing heresies. That's what I'm getting. Like, people don't necessarily line up, and political parties are very intolerant to those who don't necessarily fit into their square. They don't like the circles in their squares, or squares in their circles. So to speak. Oh, shoot. Sorry. But yeah, so get ready for biases and people to line up with their parties. Yeah, all right. Makes sense. And yet, however, just these sentiments will be allowed to be. We have already sufficient indications that it will happen in this as in all former cases of great national discussion. A torrent of angry and malign passions will be let loose to judge from the conduct of the opposite parties. We shall be led to conclude that they will mutually hope to evince injustice of their opinions, and to increase the number of their converts by the loudness of their declamations and the bitterness of their invectives. So they're going to yell real loud, and they are going to insult the other side. Yeah, that's party politics. An enlightened zeal for the energy and efficiency of government will be stigmatized as the offspring of a temper fond of despotic power. Enlightened zeal for the energy and efficiency of government will be stigmatized as the offspring of a temper fond of despotic power and hostile to the principles of liberty. Enlightened zeal for the energy and efficiency of government will be stigmatized as the offspring. Stigmatized is a very negative word in the modern days. So, in modern colloquial use, stigmatized typically means something is looked at in a negative way. But reading this here, it reads like there's going to be people who are energetic and excited to basically mold government to be more powerful in a way that will harm basic liberty. Well, considering the lockdowns recently, I can't disagree. An overscrupulous jealousy of danger and the rights of the people, which is more commonly the fault of the head than of the heart, will be represented as mere pretense and artifice. An overscrupulous jealousy of danger to the rights of the people. Overscrupulous jealousy of danger to the rights. The stale bait for popularity at the expense of public good. So it sounds like they're calling out politicians for basically acting out that they're in the rights of the people, as like acting like they're playing to people's head, but when they're actually making a call to someone's heart, they're essentially disguising logic with. They're essentially disguising logic with emotion and trying to win a popularity contest. It will be forgotten, on the one hand, that jealousy is the usual I am sorry. It will be forgotten, on the one hand, that jealousy is the usual concomitant That's a word. Concomitant. I keep saying concomitant while trying to read this. But concomitant of violent love, and that the noble enthusiasm of liberty is too apt to be infected with a spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. Oh, look, illiberal was used even back then. Infected with the spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. The noble enthusiasm of liberty is too apt to be infected with the spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. Yeah, so when people sway, so following up on what was just said with the people playing to what's popular, playing to the heart, but acting like they're going for the logical reasoning. People basically ignore that. They'll ignore that violent love. Honestly, I would love to get some of you guys' opinion on this line. That jealousy is a usual concomitant of violent love. This is a very curious line to me. It sounds to me like he's saying that when I hear violent love, it sounds like someone who like beats their kids, someone who is doing something harmful, but they claim it's for love, someone who hits their kid because they acted up and they want their kid to act good. So when I read this, I kind of need to work backward from the violent love part, because they use jealousy in a very interesting way, in a way that you don't really hear it used in modern English. So, and I don't know the word concomitant. but I'm guessing. I'm guessing it's saying that jealousy will lead to violent love, basically meaning that being perhaps being jealous of other states. See, I'm not sure how he's using jealousy here, because it might be referring to other states or other political parties. But the point of the statement is that it ends up. So I think it's saying that people will ignore the fact that that their jealousy will lead to violent love, or the remittal of their rights. Their liberties will basically be stomped on, essentially. Like they will be harmed for their own good. They will lose their liberties in order to protect them, and such. And people will also forget that the noble enthusiasm of liberty is too apt to be infected with the spirit of narrow and illiberal distrust. So I see this as basically saying people will forget that they're basically, when they vote in on their heart, they're probably going to end up voting in people who will harm their liberties, and they'll stop paying attention. They're not going to be paying attention. They won't be apt to avoid. Spirit of narrow is such a cool term. Sorry, but I got distracted. But yeah, so they'll be too busy too biased, and they'll forget that they need to pay attention to make sure that illiberal values don't forge their way into the government. So liberties will be taken, and it'll be allowed to sort of infect the whole government. See the New Deal. On the other hand, it will be equally forgotten that the vigor of government is essential to the security of liberty, that the contemplation of a sound and well-informed judgment, their interests can never be separated, and that a dangerous ambition more often lurks behind the suspicious mark of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidding appearance of zeal for the firmness and efficiency of government. Okay, so this is kind of crazy to read, because it feels like all the things that they're warning about in this very first article of Federalist paper. It's not an article of Federation, but in this very first Federalist paper, we can see that they're worried that the government is going to forget that its essential duty is to secure liberty, and that the government itself is essential to secure liberty. Because if you don't have a government protecting your liberties, well, then anyone can come in and trample on them. That's kind of the irony, is that government is the most capable thing of stomping out your liberties, but it is also the only thing that can protect them. Well, to a certain extent. I mean, you're not going to fight an army with a gun, but though I don't think if you were one person with a nuke, that you would do much better against multiple armies, not without killing yourself. But that's neither here nor there. The vigor of government is essential to the security of liberty, that in the contemplation of a sound and well-informed judgment, their interests can never be separated. Yep, so the interest of liberty can never be separated from the interest of government. It's too bad our government doesn't really seem too interested in liberty these days. But yeah, in order to keep liberty secure, you need to be interested in how your government's doing, and have your government be interested in how you're doing, essentially. Right? So, and a dangerous ambition often lurks behind a suspicious mask of zeal for the rights of people. More often lurks under the suspicious mask of zeal for the rights of the people than under the forbidding appearance of zeal for the firmness and efficiency of government. So essentially, this sounds like it's saying, watch out, because there are going to be people who claim to be trying to protect your rights when really they're just, or secure your rights, where really the action that they would take to secure your rights would be more dangerous than people saying, hey, we can use government to take care of certain things. There are things that the government is good at doing and should do. Possibly like what's a good example? Maybe education, kind of. I don't really think education, but if you look at things like mail, for example, the government's pretty decent at that. It's not great. It's it loses money all the time, but hey, you get mail pretty cheap these days. So, and government is important for certain things, military and whatnot too. So yeah, there are things that governments are better for. History will teach us that the former has been found a much more certain road to the introduction of despotism than the latter. So what they were saying is that people promoting the protection of rights and being all excited for that tend to lead to more despotic rules. And you can see that all through the 20th century with all the socialist movements that happen. You can see it with the Nazis, you can see it with Lenin, you can see it all across the board. How they were so for their people, for workers' rights, and millions died. So yeah, you can see kind of the correlation where they're claiming to be for such a good cause, and yet the moral good ends up leading to such a negative turnout for this. But yeah, so I just want to get back into that. So, and that of those men who have overturned the liberties of republics, the greatest number have begun their career by paying an obsequious court to the people. Obsequious. That's a word too. I need to learn. This is going to help me with my vocabulary, that's for sure. And I hope it helps you with yours. So let's see. Let's use context clues. And that of those men who have overturned the liberties of republics, the greatest number have begun their careers by paying obsequious court to the people. So it sounds like what he's saying is that the people who most often impugn on the liberties of others, the rulers who become despots, begin their career. They start off where they are in politics by courting the people. So you could say an obsequious court. So, or courting they're trying to make the people want to be with them, essentially. So they're appealing to the people. Commencing demagogues and ending tyrants. Interesting. Commencing demagogues and ending tyrants. This is the next page, right? Darn it. Yeah, commencing demagogues and ending tyrants. Demagogues is a word I should know. I've heard that word 1,000 times before. I should know it. But it's slipping my mind right now. Ending tyrants. So they helped with overthrowing the old rule. It sounds like. Dictionary not available. Okay, cool. Thank you, Kindle. In the course of the preceding observations, I have had an eye, my fellow citizens, to putting you upon your guard against all attempts, from whatever quarter, to influence your decision in a matter of the utmost moment to your welfare by any impressions other than those which may result from the evidence of truth. So yeah, he's just expressing that he just gave a huge warning. You will no doubt at the same time have collected from the general scope of them that they proceed from a source not unfriendly to the new Constitution. Yes, my countrymen, I own to you that after having given it an attentive consideration, I am clearly of the opinion it is your interest to adopt it. I am convinced that this is the safest course for your liberty, your dignity, and your happiness. I affect not reserves which I do not feel. I will not amuse you with an appearance of deliberation when I have decided. I frankly acknowledge to you my convictions, and I will freely lay before you the reasons on which they are founded. The consciousness of good intentions disdains ambiguity. I shall not, however, multiply professions on this head. My motives must remain in the depository of my own breast. My arguments will be open to all, and may be judged by all. They shall, at least, be offered in a spirit which will not disgrace the case of truth. So he stands by the Constitution. He wants us to enact it. He thinks it's the best thing for liberty, and this is him basically saying, "Yo, on my honor, with my full heart and my full head, I am for this." Cool. I propose in a series of papers to discuss the following interesting particulars: the utility of the Union to your political prosperity, the insufficiency of the present Confederation to preserve that Union, the necessity of a government at least equally energetic with the one proposed to the attainment of this object. All right, so let me finish on first. The conformity of the proposed Constitution to the true principles of Republican government, its analogy to your own state constitution, and lastly, the additional security which its adoption will afford to the preservation of that species of government, to liberty and to property. Oh, this is where we're seeing it. Liberty and property. So, for anyone who doesn't know, the rights that John Locke speaks about, which the Declaration of Independence was largely influenced by, were life, liberty, and property, not the pursuit of happiness. They did not put the Declaration of Independence, replace property with the pursuit of happiness, probably because they saw that property, having the right to property, they may see that as being something people could abuse, and that may have been a part of their foresight, because a pursuit of happiness says people essentially have the right to attain their property and to achieve the things that will make them happy, whereas just saying property makes it sound like people are owed things in a way. So it's interesting to see that they were speaking of liberty and property here. So here's what he wants to talk about throughout the Federalist Papers. So this is kind of our outline of what's to come. So the utility of the Union to your political prosperity. So how the United States, as a single unit, will be able to help us in international politics and keep our country strong. Essentially, that's kind of where I'm going with that. At least politically strong. The insufficiency of the present Confederation to preserve the Union. Yeah, Articles of Confederation didn't work out. It's not going to be good enough. That's where they feel. Makes sense. The necessity of a government at least equally energetic with the one proposed. So they're saying it doesn't have to be the one that's proposed in the Constitution that they've written, but it is saying that, hey, we need one that is at least as energetic as the one that they decide on, to the attainment of this object. So the government has to be just as needs to have just as much gumption to fulfill all of these duties that they're proposing. The conformity of the proposed Constitution to the true principles of Republican government. So Republican government, people elect representatives. Representatives go into the federal, and then they hash out laws there in that manner. So it makes sense. So he outlines how the Constitution will help to maintain the Republican government, which we are continuously walking farther from. So this is actually going to be really something awesome for us to read, considering all of the big push towards a fully democratic system of government, and the abandonment of republicanism. That's going to be a big issue, I think. Its analogy to your own state constitution. So not only how it relates to your state constitution, but how the principles of the Constitution should apply to your state. What I'm getting from this is that it is saying this will be the model that your state will be able to follow. Your state will be able to design their constitution around sort of what is outlined here. The Federalists weren't actually pushing for the Bill of Rights. That was the Anti-Federalists who were pushing for that. So I can't say it's like the freedom of speech and stuff like that, but it's possibly some of the moral sentiments and general rule of law, I think, maybe things that it's talking about. Things that'll help the states be able to have that connection. Yeah, let's put it that way. The additional security which its adoption will afford the preservation of that species of government to liberty and to property. So this form of government is designed to protect liberty and property, is what it's saying. Your property rights, your freedoms, that is what this government is designed to protect. How it's done that, I don't think it's fully succeeding. I mean, I think pretty much anyone can say it's not fully there, but we're doing pretty good. And I think we do have a few things to clear up, but in general, I think we are doing well, and it is good to have our government designed around preserving our liberty and property, to preserve our innate rights. So I think this will be a good lesson for people who don't really know too much about American civics, because I think this will really teach us a lot about that. All right, let's finish this guy up. All right. In the progress of this discussion, I shall endeavor to give a satisfactory answer to all of the objections which shall have made their appearance, that may seem to have any claim to your attention. It may perhaps be thought superfluous to offer arguments to prove the It may perhaps be thought superfluous to offer arguments to prove the utility of the Union, a point no doubt deeply engraved on the hearts of the great body of the people in every state, and one which it may be imagined has no adversaries. So everyone wants a U.S. Everyone wants a union here. So it may seem ridiculous. But the fact is that we already hear it whispered in the private circles of those who oppose the new Constitution, that the 13 states are of too great extent for any general system, and that we must of necessity resort to separate confederacies of distinct proportion of the whole. This doctrine will, in all probability, be gradually propagated till it has votaries? Votaries. That's a cool word. You're all seeing where I'm learning words, so I've just never heard that before, so that's interesting. This doctrine will, in all probability, be gradually propagated till it has votaries enough to countenance and open avowal of it. So, essentially, more and more people are becoming disillusioned with the idea of a single union to be able to manage all the states and to be able to provide a federal government over all of these vast areas. And this was just when we were 13 states. So now we're 50. So that's pretty crazy to think about. Like, they were very unsure even this long ago. But yeah, so for nothing can be more evident to those who are able to take an enlarged view of the subject than the alternative of an adoption of the new Constitution or dismemberment of the Union. Nothing can be more evident to those who are able to take an enlarged view of the subject than the alternative of the adoption. For nothing can be more evident to those who are able to take an enlarged view of the subject than the alternative of the adoption of the new. Oh, okay. So it's saying people can clearly see what will happen if the Union falls apart. It will therefore be of use to begin by examining the advantages of that union, the certain evils, and the probable dangers to which every state will be exposed from its dissolution. This shall accordingly constitute the subject of my next address. All right, and I believe that is the end of this first one. I will just do a quick check. Yep, so that was the end of the first one, Publius. Federalist. I don't know why when I click the backspace, it goes back to the previous section. So there we have it, though. So he's going to talk about what kind of like bad things and dangers will happen if the Union breaks up. I would like for him to talk about what evils are almost guaranteed by its maintenance. But it seems like that's what he started this first paper with in Federalist number 1. There we go. I'm just going to do it like this. I like it better. So the beginning of this definitely seemed to focus on essentially where states may be nervous because they are giving up some amount of their own control to a federal government. They are giving up some of their own sovereignty in order to create this union that should protect them, but again, at what cost? There is that risk to them, and things aren't always going to end up in their favor, at least on an individual level. and they hope it would not be something that is too recurring. Then there was also the political interests that would attempt to take away freedoms and liberties and would get in the way of everything, really. People having their own biases, having their own greeds, people being jealous of others, wanting to take what they can, and trying to twist people's emotions in order to gain more power and possibly end up becoming more and more despotic over time. So there's a lot of good warnings in here, a lot of stuff that I think is very worth seeing, it's very worth listening to, and I'm glad we've been able to go through this first Federalist paper together. It has been almost an hour, and let me know if you guys have a good name for this series. Construct founding. Nah, I want something. Maybe I can call like. I might call this the Federalist construct for this specific series, and the Anti-Federalist, of course, when I do the Anti-Federalist papers. We're going to do Federalist papers on Tuesday, Anti-Federalist papers on Thursday, so I hope you guys look forward to that. We can discuss if you guys think we should change up the style of this. Maybe you want me to just read through the whole thing and then go back and do my analysis, but this is kind of how I read things, how I go through things and analyze things nearly line by line as I go through. That's kind of my approach to all this. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any name you want for our read-alongs. Maybe I'll call it the you know, I don't have anything, but I do like the Federalist construct for this series, Anti-Federalist construct for Thursdays. So this has been the I'm having trouble speaking now. It's been I've been reading for too long. So this has been the Federalist Papers #1. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Now.